problem is they thought they were going to be able to do remote learning.
What's going on, George?
Yeah, during COVID, great, but now, no.
I don't know.
They weren't going to
What's going on with you guys?
Still getting new neighbors across the street?
Huh?
Still getting new neighbors across the street?
New neighbor?
Yeah, the Muscarellas, the house sold.
It was a good price, but of course, one of them gave a good deal to buy it. He put it in for free, I guess. I suspect, maybe they take it.
Went on hold and that kind of
Well,
stuff.
they were nice people. Liv used to do swimming lessons for the kids over there.
Plus, it's still there.
Olivia's hoping that the
I
family
wish the state cop was still there.
state cop.
The state cop was there for about a year. I liked having the state cop.
There still is. Did he move?
And
The state cop that lived across the street from you moved?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know he's gone.
there about a year or two.
Ah, okay.
You know, so what Frank has lost.
And then the kids and the teachers spread out to other centers around the state.
Oh, okay. I'm surprised in this market they doesn't have a
I
tenant.
had to work something. It's about time she did anyway.
Yeah.
You okay? Living.
In this housing environment, I would think rentals fly.
My only thing really wanted her.
Beautiful day. Well, less than I stayed. Yeah, in fact, I planned to walk here, but I found so late that I tried.
She had her mother, Rich,
the one
her
first
granddaughter.
and they were
Nursing home.
they couldn't expand it.
Rocky Hill.
Okay.
Change
Where
it.
my AIDS.
Apparently they
Through
were
AIDS.
Oh,
One of
okay.
the works
in
that
London and they had to change course. So
Everything
everything went hiatus and
She kept since wrong.
unfortunately.
And I said, hey, while all of this, she said, what happened to the grandma? She died.
Okay.
Amazing. How do you know that much about family you know nothing about?
It's a small world. Was you sure you didn't work for the CIA before you
Yeah,
retired?
it's kind of weird.
Over at the wrong time.
Is the library still open?
Yes.
I refuse to go there. I'm bitter over a fine.
Sign?
What are you waiting for Amnesty Day?
No, fine, no. Maybe 12 years ago, my son was in second grade and it was
You
one
up in
that,
the north end then?
grudges.
yeah, I don't hold a grudge.
Wow.
Maybe, yeah, about that. And it was when it was all under construction, so they were downstairs. And he was in second grade, he's already graduated from college, so
Time flies.
they were down in the basement and he had to do a book report or a biography of somebody. So we go down there and we're snaking our way through the place and it's February, like vacation. So, you know, he tells them he wants books about George Washington. So it's like, okay. So the woman goes in the back, because you can't go to the books while they were under construction, comes back with a handful of little books about George Washington. You know, he picks out like 2 or 3 of them. And, you know, so I pull out my library card to take them out for him. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, sir, you have an overdue fine on here. It's like, oh, okay, how much is it? She said 7 cents. And it's like, oh, okay. So I reach in my pocket and pull out a dime, figure I'll be the big spender, I'll give her the, oh, I'm sorry, sir, this is a Canadian dime. We can't take that.
And this has left you with this rage?
Can't get away
I
with it.
haven't set foot in the place since. I mean,
Wow.
You know, I think in the
Watching the
process.
place here.
well, I didn't like flip tables or anything like that.
No, but it's brewing. It's 12 years ago, it's brewing. It's collecting interest.
Who knows?
Before that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Library card have one of those now.
It's called a slow blowout.
I've seen movies about this. It
don't even know if
starts
I still
with a
have
slight and then,
That's good.
When did it expire?
Does that mean we're in store for someone going postal?
yeah, I should think it's gonna go Hannibal Lecter.
No, I think I've renounced it. What's this color? It's at 10% off at the OC.
You know what happens on the TV? These mics sometimes get in you guys when I'm watching you. Right up in the eye level of some people or face.
Some people.
Well, you think some people got a mustache when they hit just right, you know? I gotta stop watching the town TV. I see enough of you without watching that.
No, that's Brian. He's coming.
I still think Walcott Hill needs some paving work, despite what you said to me the other day. Maybe not in front of your house. And there are parts of it that are okay, but there are parts that, I don't know, need some work, considering it's a main drag through town. So I don't know. Maybe they can do like they did up on Ridge Road last year, big sections, like a bus length that they paved, about 7 or 8 of them. Yeah, held it together for another few years. I don't know. I haven't talked to John or anything in town hall, the other road guy, engineer.
I want us to do that mulch and dust thing over again. That was a disaster.
Yeah. Interesting on the, that they, what are they gonna do over here on the west side of town with the sinking roadways and stuff from the old, yeah, from the old original contractor, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's down to the trenches.
Yeah,
Where's that, Straddle Hill?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we call it on here, yeah.
All right. All right, I guess we can start. Texted Ryan to see if he was coming. All right, call to order the Tuesday, March 21st meeting of the Wethersfield Planning and Zoning Commission. Don't have a vice chair or a clerk, so I'll take the attendance. I'm here, Ryan Allard is not here, Joe Hammer is not here, Jim Hughes is not here, George Oikel,
Is here.
Tom Deane,
Here.
Tony Hamicki is not here, Dave Edwards,
Here.
Mike Vieira is not here, David Drake,
Here.
Pete Lambruni,
Here.
Paul Thompson.
Here.
All right, so all 3 alternates are seated. What we have tonight is a continuation of the public hearing, 213523Z, Town of Wethersfield seeking a zoning text amendment to Section 513 of the Wethersfield Zoning Regulations for adult use cannabis establishments. Yeah, we had some public testimony and some discussion last time. Denise has put together a very comprehensive memo at the request of one of our members who isn't here tonight, covering basically all of our prior discussions. Copies of the minutes are also included in our packet of basically all of the times that we have talked about this over the last 10 years. The town council discussions on the same subject. One new piece of correspondence came in today from Thomas Carson, who is kind of pointing out the coming soon of 679 Silas Deane Highway, a head shop between Max Bebo's and Vito's in the town center zone. You know, just as an example of kind of types of businesses that are locating in town. You know, I think that, like the one that had been across the street here, I mean, those are basically retail uses that are not regulated in any unusual or specific way. So it's, you know, just a case of making sure that they're not selling something they shouldn't be selling, but otherwise, you know, it's not anything that we have jurisdiction over at this point. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yep. I guess, you know, Since it is a public hearing, before we start talking among ourselves, I'll ask if there's anybody in the public that wants to comment on the application.
We'd like to comment and support.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you want to say anything, come on up to the microphone, give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Michael Skadron. My address is 1729 Sherwood Road. I'm from Michigan. I'm not from Connecticut, but I've worked in real estate for the last 12 years and worked for some of the largest cannabis companies in the world over the last 5 to 6, and have seen this use come into many towns such as yours and create, in many cases, nothing but a positive outcome when it comes to revenue for the town. Security and safety has never been an issue, and we feel that it's important to bring a use like this to the town under a regulated basis rather than allowing it to thrive on the black market, which is inevitably what it will do if not regulated by the town. So we're big proponents of the idea that the town should get ahead of this sort of use and put the requirements, whether it be distance restrictions or zoning, into place to allow these uses to locate legally and by your code. Also, I represent SLAP Consulting. I also have Amanda here on video, and I think she would like to say something as well. Would that be okay?
Yeah, you can bring her over there, I guess.
Thank you.
That's a new one.
All right, Amanda, all you.
Well, the miracles of technology. Sorry I couldn't be in person with you all today, but you guys are in good hands with Michael should any other questions arise today. I know last time we did, quite an in-depth session, so I just wanted to, again, applaud the efforts to research this in a thorough and robust manner. I think we'll do nothing but good here in town, and I don't want to reiterate where I stated last time, but we are here should any additional questions come up, and appreciate the robust conversation and consideration that this has been given, and look forward to hopefully being a partner with the town as a retailer here.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak on this application?
Are you speaking on this application, or is it the entire requirement in general?
It's the text amendment.
Yeah, it's the cannabis regulations.
It's not specific to a dispensary.
Yeah. Don't be shy. Yeah, just give us your name and address when you speak, please.
Good evening, I'm Harrison Elba. I'm a resident of Glastonbury at 58 Uplands Way. I'm here on behalf of Shangri-La, Connecticut. We have a number of retail licenses for recreational in the state of Connecticut, and we're interested in the town of Wethersfield specifically for a few reasons. The recent, events of, or rather the moratorium expiration allows us to consider Wethersfield if, it does pass with the council here as a town that hasn't been kind of overcrowded, such as like Manchester, that has a similar commercial aspect. We are a MSO, but a small family-run MSO, and our president, although she's not here today for Shangri-La, Connecticut, works for Section 8 housing. She just burnt out and unfortunately couldn't make it. But as far as our intentions with retail within the town of Wethersfield, a very beautiful retail establishment that has a similar aspect to our other retail establishments, both in Connecticut and out of state. Pretty cookie cutter design, very safe environment for the consumer to go in. And, we think it would be a great match here in the town, considering like the other national brands that are on the Silas Deane Highway and surrounding. One concern that I have just in speaking with Denise Bradley and reviewing this is the lack of language with regards to distance from schools or churches. As I've been made aware, there's a concern of distance from the youth population here in town. And so one location that we have been looking at on the Silas Deane Highway is relatively close to a school. And if that's something that the council is, has a problem with, I would recommend, giving us some guidance so that we don't, necessarily consider locations in that or just waste your time or the zoning department's time with applications that are too close to schools or churches or whatever you want to restrict. Back to why we like the town of Wethersfield. Proximity to the highway, the abundance of other shopping in the area, and the overall, I would say, availability of good commercial real estate, both for lease and sale. So if you were to allow it, it presents itself as one of the best towns in Connecticut, considering the timing. We don't have that much longer to make our decisions on where we want to be. And a lot of the big players have already kind of decided on where their locations are. They flocked to like the major, like the ones that opened up that were our majorly commercial. And so Wethersfield coming on board now, I think you'll see probably like a decent amount of applications, but we definitely, hope that the town considers ours, if it were to pass and we apply. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Josiah Schley. I'm from 45 Banks Road, Simsbury, Connecticut. I guess I would say I'm the community outreach for Shangri-La because I'm a medical cannabis patient, so I like to hear both sides of everything, recreational and medical. And currently there's a big gap because the medical dispensaries are focusing so much on recreational that med patients can't get their meds, because they're following the higher priced rec dispensaries. So even personally for me, I'm looking for more options for a dispensary that I can trust, and now I'm going to start looking at recreational dispensaries. So a recreational dispensary is also going to be utilized as a medical option for a lot of people who aren't able to trust the current Big Four producers right now, especially as they're under investigation by the state for bad practices. So it'll be very nice to have options and someone to trust, especially as a medical patient, and just be aligned with a dispensary that is hearing the needs of the community and considering more than just making money off rec patients, also considering medical patients, and just being considerate across the board of people's needs and trying to meet some of those gaps, like maybe offering more CBD products, some non-psychoactive things. It doesn't get you high, but it is a need in the medical cannabis market that maybe recreational stores can also help fill this gap as well, where the medical producers have been failing us because they've not shown us that we can trust them to give us safe medicine yet. I don't know how up to date you are with the mold issues and contaminant issues with the current 4 big medical cannabis producers in Connecticut, but I don't feel safe getting my medicine there anymore, so I let my medical card lapse just because there's no use for it right now. There's no one that I trust. So I would like to represent a dispensary that is going to take care of both sides of the situation and also be a benefit to the community and hopefully an option that people can trust who are lacking because they can't go to the medical dispensaries right now. And I don't foresee that changing soon. So it'd be a good gap to fill.
Can I ask you a couple of quick questions?
Yeah.
One is, I thought the same producers were creating both medical and recreational product, because basically the recreational sales have to also be grown in Connecticut. And that, the story has always been that everything gets, scrutinized and tested and so forth. Is that not the case?
I guess could you repeat the last part of the question? I'm a little bit hard of hearing. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, I thought that, particularly on the medical side, that there was, testing and oversight to prevent mold problems and that sort of thing, contaminants and so forth, or is it?
There is, but the problem is the person in charge of doing that testing is a former head of the DCP, and there was some connections with the Alta Psi Lab doing the testing. It was just very shady. You can look it up. There's some news articles about it, but the testing just isn't very trustworthy at this point. We need more testing companies as well.
Okay.
Because there's only 2.
Yeah, and the other question I had, I guess, if you don't trust the product, this is sort of an irrelevant question, but I thought that the state had been limiting the quantities that people could buy recreational to ensure that there was a sufficient supply for the medical customers.
Well, for example, Fine Title just sent out an email to all their customers. They're out of Newington saying, like, we realize we're lacking in the medical area. They sent this out to everybody. We realize we don't have enough products. We're trying, but we just can't right now. And they don't really have an explanation for it because they promised medical patients that, it'd be even. We wouldn't have to worry about this problem, but it's just not panning out that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
So I'm not clear. I thought
Could you
that-
pull down the mic just so that we get that?
I'm not clear. I thought a medical dispensary could only dispense product to patients with prescription or with medical need. A medical dispensary is allowed to sell for recreational purposes?
Yep, they're called hybrid dispensaries. There's one in Hartford right now, run by Cureleaf. So it's just 2 doors going into the exact same place. So it's...
Yeah, it happens in dermatology too, but I won't get
Yeah.
into it. But yeah, the private spend crowds out the medical spend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or?
Well, frankly, I think the medical side was built based on the expectation that there was going to be the recreational side to pay for it at some point down the road.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you then buy recreational marijuana to substitute for your medicine, are you comfortable with that? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, yeah.
So you would use recreational marijuana to take care of your medical needs? And you feel that having recreational marijuana gives you more options to be able to get access to what you need? That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, yes. Currently, I think there's only like maybe 1 or 2 open, and they all have the same products at them. So I really want to be able to have the ability to have different products, not a billion different stores with all the exact same products in them from the exact same places. So variety and different production is also great.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Anybody else in the public? Mike?
Good evening, Mike Panic, 1260 Silas Deane Highway, along with a couple of other buildings. I did speak 2 weeks ago, but I
heard something new tonight that I didn't hear 2 weeks ago that I just wanted to comment on. I think it's important when the board is thinking about this decision, and there was a question brought up by this new person that may be having a license as well about the distances from certain things in town, and I heard them specifically mention a school, and thinking that the Silas Highway is probably one of the better retail locations for the possibility of one of these stores to open up, that when you look at things, that you want to be near or you don't want to be near or you want to restrict, and you compare a church to a K through 12 school potentially, and again, I'm not a resident of Wethersfield, I'm a resident of Oxford, but do own multiple buildings on the Silas Highway and in the neighborhoods. I'm not sure that if I lived in town, I would be in support of having one of these facilities near a K through 12 school, where I would have a totally different view of it being near a church. I think the clientele, for lack of better words, between a church and a school is radically different. And I would just hope that since I heard that tonight, I felt obligated to speak a little more than I did 2 weeks ago, that you consider, something near a school with a little different merit than something near a church. Again, appreciate a few minutes of your time. And I am in favor of the use as long as it's properly regulated and done the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Tom?
Tom Mazzarella, 600 Walcott Hill Road, speaking as a resident of Wethersfield. I'm having a little bit of trouble grasping the concern that a facility like this should not be located next to a school or a church or certain distances and so forth. Because the other side of the story that I'm hearing is there's absolutely nothing wrong with the sale of cannabis. It's not going to hurt anybody. So what is the concern about having it next to children? Well, I think it's a valid concern. But when you say, well, it doesn't really matter or it does matter, I think you should make a decision. Does the town of Wethersfield want to represent itself as a town that supports recreational cannabis? I know it's legal. It has not yet been legalized by the federal government, but just because it's legal doesn't mean it's something that we have to get behind and promote. I feel that the more access there is to recreational cannabis, it's going to trickle down. It has the potential of exposing young children to it. Maybe somebody leaves some edibles on their counter, and these stories are getting into the news all the time, and it's going to increase. So I'm opposed to it. I've told you my reasons why. And I think the point Mr. Carson was trying to make about the vape shops, and I had a similar conversation with a group of people last week, is, the average person on the street doesn't understand that the planning and zoning can't regulate which type of business goes into a storefront on the Silas Highway, such as a vape shop, or we have too many dollar stores, or we have too many pawn shops. Well, here you have the ability to prevent future cannabis distribution facilities, retail distribution, sales, by approving regulations that restrict that type of use in Wethersfield, period. And I think you have the legal ability to do that, where you couldn't do it with, for example, pawn shops. You can't arbitrarily say, we don't like pawn shops, so we're not going to have any. I may be wrong on that, but I think...
No, just go with it. It's good enough.
Well, tonight I think you have the ability to just vote no and say you don't like the proposed regulation the way it's written, and to go back to what was recommended by our town council, that, okay, we can have other forms of cannabis growing, processing, distribution, and prohibit retail sales. And some people will say, well, that's, just being a hypocrite of allowing some forms of it and not others. And to be honest, that's what we call a compromise, because people don't want to completely exclude the cannabis business in town. And I think that was a compromise that was palatable to people on the council. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? The only other person who hasn't spoken yet?
Hello?
Yeah, you can move that up.
Yeah, okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Perez. I live at 79 Piper Brook Avenue, Newington, Connecticut. I'm here with Shangri-La, and I also represent LEAP, which is the Law Enforcement Action Partnership. It's a group of active and retired law enforcement professionals, lawyers, judges, police officers. I myself was a police officer in Hartford for 12 and a half years. I retired in 2019. And the entire time I was on, marijuana really wasn't my problem. It was fentanyl, crack, some meth every now and again. But I never really saw it as an issue as far as like really uptick in crime. The biggest issues, like I said, were those hard drugs, everything like that. I don't understand why, I guess we don't take advantage of the fact that we can grab the funding, take the money, support your police departments with the money from that, instead of, I guess, all the money tied up in asset forfeiture or trying to take from asset forfeiture. Be better invested, the money that you get from retail sales would be better invested towards things like that.
Okay.
He's raised a good point. I'm still a little bit confused on where and how the funds can be spent from the, I guess, allocation that would come from the tax back from the state. I was under the understanding there's a lot of restrictions around that. Do we have clarity on that?
I mean, as far as where the funding will go?
Yeah, I mean, we hear a lot about the taxation aspect of it.
I'm sure you're allowed to create your own rules as far as the town goes, as far as
I
where
don't
you
think
want.
you are. That's why I'm looking for some expertise. I don't think you can like buy a new snowplow with it.
No.
Obviously going to extreme, but
It's laid out pretty well in the state regulations, mostly social programs, but you can definitely fund town departments, a good number of town departments.
okay. But
an outline in your agenda package.
okay, I thought I saw something like that. But I was looking for a quick synopsis. So it's things like and I would hope it would go towards like social services programs and things of that nature versus okay.
Well, I think there's 6 specific uses, and I don't know if somebody can find those faster than I can.
I couldn't find it. That's why I know I had seen it somewhere. I was just hoping that somebody could sum it up
I
quickly.
got a good idea.
I know I saw it somewhere.
Yes, I think it's some of the materials that we had at the last meeting.
Okay.
George?
Probably a question to more Denise. Denise, we're talking about distances to schools and other things from marijuana facilities. What would happen if a marijuana facility were located and a daycare wanted to open within, within that distance to a facility? It kind of confuses me as to how the commission would handle that, or what do you what would you say as a professional on that one? You know what I'm driving at?
So the reason that the draft in front of you does not have a specific recommended distance or separation requirement was over the course of the 18 times that we've met to discuss this, we have brought up different distances, and we have done some GIS mapping that would show what locations that would leave in town, and they were minimal and maybe not where we wanted to direct that type of a use. So the conversation reflected our regulations for alcoholic beverages, which essentially let you take into consideration those uses and whether or not they will have an impact on them as part of your special permit approval.
So you're not recommending a set distance then? Okay.
In this set specifically, there is not a distance, but we have talked in the past
I
about.
think it makes a lot of
implementing
sense to me. Okay.
Well, but to answer what I thought was your question, suppose one of these establishments is located in, position X.
You're right.
And we say you can't have a school or a daycare within 1,000 feet of it.
Would have to say no to that?
No,
That's what I'm,
no, you wouldn't,
Okay, we wouldn't.
because they're already there. I mean,
okay.
so it would be kind of a non-conforming use if, we're not prohibiting daycares from locating. They can do their own analysis and decide whether they want to be within 1,000 feet of a cannabis establishment or not.
Okay.
What we are restricting is, the location of the cannabis establishment. They wouldn't have to shut down if a daycare opened up across the road.
Okay. That's my question, and that's the answer. That's an answer.
Tom and
Good.
Peter.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to, George, just to make sure we're clear on what's in front of us. As a matter of fact, I called Denise this afternoon and had a discussion about this. I think what's in front of us simply limits one establishment versus another cannabis establishment, and it limits it to, I think, 2,000 feet separation, but leaves it completely open as far as schools, churches, or other sensitive areas, for the reasons that Denise pointed out. But there is a separation in these regulations from establishment to establishment. Is that correct? Denise, do I have that right?
That was 2,000 square feet.
Right, in the draft.
2,000
that you
feet,
have,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so we do have a separation from facility to facility, but no separations to sensitive other areas.
No, I don't think so.
So the regulations specifically, it doesn't say that it cannot be within the 2,000 feet. It says that with the site plan, the applicant should indicate the uses of all of the proposed properties within 2,000 feet for you to then consider during the process.
All right,
But
so
if you want to, change that to say they can't be within
Yeah, actually,
2,000 feet of each other,
Well,
we can,
apparently I misread it. I thought that it specifically.
well, at least you tried to read it.
Yeah,
So
I
that's,
All
no,
138 pages of it.
Tom.
Sort of along that line, I read and reread this afternoon the proposed regulations, and I did read it to indicate that there wasn't a site restriction in the regs, but there are a whole host of requirements that someone that is presenting a proposal has to meet in order for this commission to lawfully consider such an application. And if the applicant does not meet all of those standards in essentially the plan that they present to us, the application would be denied as a matter of course. I also understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are only two types of zones that would be a permissible location for such a facility to be established, which pretty well narrows down to a very limited sector where such an establishment could be established.
That's right. So in the draft regulations, we are proposing retailers be permitted in the general business and regional commercial zones, and cultivators be permitted in the business park zone.
And there aren't very many such zones in the town. I think that my own personal reading is this gives the commission reasonable flexibility to consider an application and to establish, various kinds of conditions on the establishment. I mean, it provides a lot of flexibility to the commission to, to provide its function of protecting the citizens of the town, the residents of the town, and also provides a formulaic basis for such establishments being able to be established in the town. And since this is, from my count, this is the 15th occasion for this commission to be considering the issue of cannabis within the town, that there's been an exhaustive amount of research and intellectual functioning over the past 9.5 years that this issues or cannabis issues have been brought before this commission. So I think the proposed set of regulations provides, I think, a forthright and reasonable way of dealing with the issue from a land use planning perspective. I recognize there are those within the town that do not want such establishments at all. I do not think that having an absolute black-white policy consideration for land use functions is a function of this commission. I think that public policy decision should be placed in a higher body than this commission. A body that is an elected body, elected by the electors of the town of Wethersfield, and denying in an absolute sense the possibility of having such establishments within the town, I think is beyond the purview of what this commission ought to be doing, even though it apparently has the power to establish a regulation that absolutely prohibits. But I think that that kind of black-white prohibition or sanctioning should be in a body not of this commission. So I think what's been proposed is a reasonable land use planning operation and function of this commission's authority. And my own personal view is to support the regulations that have been proposed. And if an elected body representing the electors of the town wish to make a different decision, that is within their purview. And I don't think it's within our purview of providing a prohibition.
Peter, before you go, I wanted to answer Paul's original question about what the money could be used for. There are 6 things. One is streetscape improvements and other neighborhood developments in communities where cannabis, hybrid retailers, or micro cultivators are located. Second, education programs or youth employment and training programs in town. 3, services for town residents who were released from custody, probation, or parole. 4, mental health or addiction services. 5, youth service bureaus and municipal juvenile review boards. And 6, community or civic engagement efforts.
Thank you.
No, Peter, sorry.
Tom, I agree with you on this point, and frankly, I was negative on cannabis, period, for quite some time. And after listening to this debate now for a year or so that I've been on it, I've actually softened on the issue, and I think you've got it right, that we should look at this as a land use. Though I do not agree, because I'm just not comfortable with it, that we shouldn't have distance requirements. I just don't agree with that. I believe that we have to have some distance requirements to sensitive areas. One would be the school. I think a gentleman said tonight they're thinking of putting one next to probably Silas Deane Junior High. Well, then they come in here and it's 575 feet away. Well, is that good or is that bad? Well, I don't want to have that debate in the future. I'd like us tonight, if possible, to say, okay, maybe it should be 1,500 feet or 2,000 feet or whatever we think is the right number, and not leave it up to the applicant to try to convince us that 575 feet is okay because town X, does 600 feet and I'm just close enough. So I just think that just would drive me crazy. So I would be in favor to proceed if we put some requirements. Now, churches, my personal belief are sensitive areas, and I think we should have restrictions, but I understand other people, probably look at that as in a different manner. So I'm not so hard on that point, but frankly, I think it would be a good idea also to have some distance restrictions to churches. As far as residences, that's a tough one, because if we start looking at residences, that would probably close out most of Silas Deane and a good portion of, I guess, the other corridor that we have. So maybe that one it doesn't make sense. But I would suggest that we think carefully about churches and schools for this regulation, which is not in the regulation right now. And that does give me concern and cause for concern, sorry.
So I definitely agree with the thinking in the statement that commission shouldn't unilaterally be dreaming up or bringing up our own perspectives on things as a commission that may not represent the full community view. What I think I think the presentations that we have were outstanding, both the last session and this as well. A lot of new information for me. Part I feel we're leaving out of the table, though, is we still have a town council, I guess, instruction, for lack of a better word, or input to us. As I read that, back to the motion, I think I have the right one that they did on February 22nd of 2022, to advise the Wethersfield Planning and Zoning Commission of the town council decision to allow for the cultivation of marijuana business establishments, but to not allow retail. And they passed that motion 5-1-1. So I view their input there as representing some larger constituency of citizen input. And then we have the police chief's input and the health district's input. So from that perspective, I feel as a zoning commission, we should be listening to that as well and taking that into account. Because I think it's a pretty clear instruction from the town council what direction they were expecting.
Okay.
I had a quick question, maybe Denise can answer this. In section C, number 3, it says that all medical marijuana facilities have the ability to go to hybrid. Is that something the zoning department decides on, or is that just automatically going to happen at all the medical marijuana? Because way back when we did medical marijuana, I did a quick study and realized there were like 8 of them within 15 miles of the town of Wethersfield. So if you have 8 facilities plus New England's new one, that's 9 facilities within 15 miles. What makes Wethersfield need this unless we're looking for the money incentive? And I agree that with what you said about the town council of looking at cultivators opposed to retail, because cultivators are hidden uses where the retails are ones where residents, schools, and people will, it's obvious and becomes the social issue. But with the question, do you know if all the medical marijuanas are gonna become hybrids?
I mean, that's part of the text that's being proposed, and that would be only for, we don't have
No,
any
but
locations in town
Say
either.
Manchester, does theirs automatically become?
No,
No.
no, you have to apply
Go through the
both
line,
through, the town zoning has to permit the
Okay, so
change, and you also have to
Department of
apply for the
Consumer
change
Protection.
with
Okay.
consumer protection. What this is basically saying is that if we had a medical
Yeah,
dispensary somewhere in town, and they went through the steps of converting to hybrid, that they could continue to operate. I mean,
Okay.
that's essentially all this is saying, is that if there was one that
Okay, so it's
converted and
just-
became hybrid,
yeah.
they could continue to operate, and that nobody else can, other than transporters driving through town or making deliveries, or one or two if we adopt that.
okay. Answered my question.
Other Dave?
It seems to me the first thing we have to answer before we even discuss this, it's based on the town council's input, the police, letters and different things. Do we want it? That's the first thing. If we all say no, then we don't have to do this anymore. Do we want medical only? And if that's our choice, there's a lot of this we don't have to do anymore. If it's cultivators only, again, with a lot of this we don't have to do anymore, or we do hybrid. I'm not necessarily, for myself, the retail doesn't do much for me. I mean, the 3% tax thing, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't mean anything. So the hybrid thing to me goes away. If we're gonna vote right now, I'd probably say no, but I could buy into the medical part or the cultivating part, the retail, the hybrid.
Well, medical
No.
already exists.
What?
We passed that 10 years ago. We don't need to talk about that.
Oh, okay, I'm with you. So just, it seems to me we need to decide that the first thing, then we make the rules on based on what we decide.
Yeah, I mean,
This kind of covers everything, but if we're not, if we're not gonna do retail, then it changes a lot, in my mind.
right. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, and I had essentially come up with, there are kind of three paths that we can go down here. One is,
Let's decide that
work,
first.
work on what we have here now, follow what the town council recommended and cross out some sections, or just say no.
Can we just do that now then? I mean,
Well,
that's kind of what we're
the
at.
hearing's still open.
I understand, okay.
Yeah.
Just, but I kind
But,
of feel like with Paul.
yeah, I
said,
mean, frankly, I would rather have something for regulations before we leave here tonight than continue in just sort of this
No, I'd like to.
limbo land.
I agree with you
where-
100%, but if we all decide we just want medical only, then we go through this, and
Well-
it changes a lot here.
Well, if medical only already exists, we don't need to talk
Yeah, we
about,
still got to have this, though.
no.
You don't have to have this? We don't have any plan, okay, okay, good. That makes it
We
real
decide
easy for
that,
me.
then
That
you
makes it real
basically
easy for
say
me
no-
then,
No
yeah.
cannabis retail,
Okay.
period.
Okay.
We
that
don't
makes
need
it
any
easy
of
for me.
this.
Control
Okay,
whether it becomes
keep
a
going,
hybrid.
keep going, Rich, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, recognizing that it is a public hearing and somebody else has come in, I'd ask again if anybody wants to comment on this before we close the hearing.
Can I just make one comment?
Yep, please.
Just a quick question in light of what Mr. Drake just mentioned. 10 years ago, you voted to allow the medical marijuana dispensary, for lack of better words. So am I understanding that this board might consider a medical dispensary as not having the same problems as a regular dispensary? Because if you're against having any retail sales of pot, medical dispensaries are the same thing, and I assure you, there are loads of people in the state of Connecticut that have medical marijuana cards, some of which I know, not me, that can go to the doctor and get a card pretty easily. I mean, you have a car accident, you can get a card. So it would be okay to have a medical dispensary on Silas Deane Highway, but it wouldn't be okay to have, like, to eliminate people that want to just do it recreational? I don't understand the concept of why 10 years ago, when medical became legal, that was approved, and then now retail, you're opening it up to a different sector of buyers, but the problems that I'm hearing that you're worried about, traffic, police, and all of that kind of stuff, I think would be the same. I don't understand the difference between medical and retail, and I just don't understand the concept, and I just wanted to question that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, at that time, the only thing that was sold within a medical distribution was marijuana that you smoke, none of the over-the-counter candies or anything.
No, that's been available
No,
since
you-
the medical
You could,
opened.
there were multiple delivery methods back then.
I can try to explain the difference between recreational and medical. The board wants to hear that.
I don't know if you want to, I think we know, but
Okay, just the differences, I guess, in, like, yeah, right. Hi, Harrison Elba again. Essentially, the medical retail establishments are subject to a monopoly of 4 manufacturers in the state of Connecticut. As my colleague Josiah mentioned, some of them are under investigation right now. There have been quality concerns. Essentially, by opening up the state for recreational cannabis manufacturing and retail, they're allowing the consumer, that consumer being a medical patient or an adult 18 plus, to use cannabis and to be able to choose where they want to purchase it from, whether it's from a medical, a hybrid medical recreational, or just a recreational company. It's a difference of licensure. You know, those of us that were lucky enough to gain licensure in Connecticut are subject to similar regulations that the medical 4 are subject to. But we have different allowances as far as what we're able to produce, both quantity-wise as far and as well as for the manufactured products potency. So there's a difference in, you know, recreational side may not be allowed to manufacture the same potency level products as the medical side. So there's a difference in the actual products that you can purchase on either side, but ultimately the consumer will have the ability to get what they want either way. It's the same molecule, delta-9 THC, and the other isomers of THC. You'll be able to purchase them on either side. Generally, you'll find that the medical patient has a more open menu than the recreational patient. So medical ultimately being less restrictive to the patient. They can purchase from either side, basically, if they have the medical card. And as mentioned earlier, it's incredibly easy to get.
okay. Thank you very much.
Can I ask them a quick
Oh,
question?
yeah, sure.
Just so I educate myself, if it's medical, you need a prescription of some sort, right?
No prescription. You just need a card. You can go
And
in
where do
there.
you get the card
Yeah,
from?
you're subject to limits, but right now the major limitation is lack of supply because, you know, of the 4-company monopoly now opening up. Most of the towns that the medical dispensaries were in did allow them to convert to hybrids, so they're able now to divert a portion of their medical supply to recreational.
Let's say you have health problems and your
Mm-hmm.
doctor says you should take this. That's the medical card, or you don't?
Yeah, you get the medical card and you
And where
can
do
just
get it
go
from? You get it
purchase
from a
whatever
doctor,
you
or get it
want.
from- You say you get it from anywhere?
Yeah, you can go to any medical dispensary.
Yeah.
No, but.
No, you get the card from a doctor.
You get the card from a doctor, though.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You're under, a doctor says you can do this, so it's different.
Yeah, essentially he's prescribing THC and then it's
No,
up
I
to you
understand,
whichever form
but
of
it's still a
THC.
doctor telling you can do this, just not some
Correct.
guy. So there's a big difference when a doctor says you should go taking that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yes, you can both come up. What's this, like max headroom, or something like that?
I'll let Amanda go.
I would have done it over Zoom, but there wasn't one, so we had to get creative. But I wanted to address a few things. Just on that last conversation about adult use versus medical. So medical patients who have a medical card can go to a medical store, but they can also go to any store they want. And I would say the easiest way to think about this is I have for sure gotten a prescription from a doctor for Tylenol at some point, and therefore they filled it behind the counter, but I can also buy it over the counter and walk into the store. So for a medical patient, they can go to both and they'll have more access to inventory, but they will not be able to avoid the taxes that are imposed on adult use cannabis, which medical patients can otherwise avoid at this point in time. So that's the big difference. Medical dispensaries don't create sales tax revenues like the 3% cannabis tax we're talking about. Michael, you can just totally put me down on the podium too. You don't have to hold it in school. The next thing I wanted to address was, well, now I can't see anyone. Now I get what you were doing. I wanted to address Mr. Edwards' comment, and he was explaining that, he's seen within 15 miles of Wethersfield, there's 8 or 9 stores. I mean, 15 miles is more than like a third of the state of Connecticut. Within 15 miles of Wethersfield, there's a lot of things, right? I mean, there's pharmacies all over Wethersfield and liquor stores and multiple clothing stores, and just because other communities have them doesn't mean that the citizens of Wethersfield and other communities don't want to be able to purchase these things in their community, and we ought to send them elsewhere. So I think the fact that there's others within 15 miles in the state of Connecticut, I don't know where that suggests that it's not something that's appropriate for Wethersfield when the citizens of Wethersfield should have the ability to shop there. And I next wanted to address Mr. Thompson's comments with regard to following the guidance of council. I think, as we've discussed and was in the packet, council, quite a while back, passed a resolution, just stating their opinion. But they didn't pass an ordinance, and they could have at that point in time passed a prohibitive ordinance. They chose not to and delegated that to the P&Z. And I think to look at an opinion that's a couple of years old, before we had seen adult use stores and these hybrid stores come online and seen that there haven't been any serious issues, would be to be taking their opinion out of context. Because I think, one, there's a couple different council members, but also I think a lot of them have changed opinion. And I think by choosing not to make a definitive statement through an ordinance, that their opinion from a couple of years ago should be taken very lightly, and rather this should be the consideration of P&Z and what P&Z thinks is appropriate from a land use perspective. And I truly do believe several of those council members might have a different opinion today, but again, they've had years and haven't taken any action to enable prohibition. So, next subject I want to talk about is, with these setbacks, is it possible, if you are to adopt an allowance to retail today, to make an amendment here during deliberations that would basically state, may not be within 2,000 feet of a school, and then the rest of those setbacks you have more subjectivity with, and enumerate that as the one that is the one steadfast. I don't know if that can be done, but if that can be done, I see that as one solution right there. And lastly, I want to make sure it's clear that tonight isn't, I heard conversation of just strike the part about retail and only allow cultivation. I want to just make sure all that would be doing is allowing cultivation, but it's not prohibiting retail. It's not addressing retail at all. So then we leave this meeting with no decision on retail, which is fine, but I can't, there isn't a proposal here to the contrary. So I just want to make sure that'd be pretty clear. We wouldn't be voting against it. We just wouldn't be touching the subject of retail today. Is that correct?
What was the question again?
Are we actually addressing the idea of retail, or?
Well, if we strike that as suggested by Mr. Thompson, just strike the whole retail part so that he could adopt the cultivation part, then we just aren't addressing retail at all today.
No, I don't think. If I'm following this correctly, we've got a couple of different things on the table, but retail is the number one. So what our vote would be, if I'm wrong here, would be yes or no on allowing a retail establishment or retail sale. That's the only vote that we're making, correct?
Well, there's no prohibition proposed in to adopt an alternative to the allowance here. There's merely adopting this allowance or not adopting something.
Well, they're draft regulations that we're looking at, and we react to them. I think everything's on the table.
No, I'm getting confused. I thought what we were trying to do tonight is decide on these regulations that Denise put in front of us.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not a question of prohibition, it's a question of, do we want to adopt these regulations or amend these regulations, as I had suggested, by putting some sort of a distance, at least for schools and possibly even for churches.
Pete, what are we regulating?
What's that?
What are we regulating? What if we say we don't want retail? That changes everything.
Right, because we could just strike that language and
Yeah,
adopt
change
everything
everything.
else in there.
I mean, the regulation's the same, we just make cross out
Then
paragraphs.
we're just trashing what Denise put together.
No, we're not.
No,
I'm open to every discussion, but saying I think it's first, go ahead, Rich, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I think, as I said, there are three things we can do. We can either, pass what is in front of us with, modifications maybe for separation distances, or, we can do what the town council's opinion was, cultivation only and not retail. Or, not pass anything, or pass a prohibition.
I think we need to pass something like that.
No, I agree, we need to pass something, because,
So, I'm sorry, am I out of turn?
no, you're in turn.
So one way of doing, so Denise has this package in front of us, this is what we're working on. One of those courses of action could be, very simply, to say, make a motion to vote on all of this, but if on page 3, if you removed section 1, on section, page 3, section 3C, zoning district restrictions, if we were to go through and remove item 1, retailers shall be permitted only in the following zoning districts, but left 2 and 3, it would essentially adopt everything else in here, but not retail establishments. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so so we are working on Denise's proposal. It's just a question of scale and scope of it. If you want to act on Denise's proposal, and you remove this paragraph, it takes out all retail distribution, but it allows cultivation and micro-cultivation.
So basically eliminate 1.
Yep. That would eliminate retail sales and leave everything, and then we'd have to go through and make sure that we're removing that doesn't have a downstream impact there.
All right.
Other than a hybrid, nothing else is permitted. Yeah, so I mean, that is one direction we could go.
I guess I was just trying to address it sounded like we kind of had this procedural question of like, what are we working on, but
Right.
it's this with that language.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else in the public before we close the public hearing? And I assume we want to.
Make a motion to close.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, hearing's closed. Yeah, I think what we have talked about is a variety of directions to go. And one is to, essentially the new section 5.13 that's in the packet is what is in front of us. One thing I would point out is that if people want to include separation distances, actually a finite separation distance, we have them in the medical marijuana dispensary regulations and could basically carry those over. What it says is that, in that case, no dispensary facility shall be located within 1,000 feet of a church, temple, or other place of worship, or a public or private elementary or secondary school. No medical marijuana dispensary shall be located within 1,000 feet of any other site containing a medical marijuana dispensary facility, and that all distances contained in this section are measured by taking the nearest straight line between lot boundaries. So that kind of formulation exists in our regulations for the medical facilities. And,
So it's 1,000 feet from churches, schools, and other establishments?
Correct.
Right? It's pretty straightforward, okay. So I'll make a motion that we adopt these regulations as presented by Denise with the stipulation that we add separation distances consistent with the current medical marijuana separation distances.
in section 511C 1, 2, and 3, and you're okay with the 1,000 feet?
Yeah.
Where would you put that, on D somewhere? Is that what?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would, yeah, it would be D4, I think.
Can I ask one, just one, on D2, it says residential neighborhoods. That would basically eliminate everything. I mean, everything, isn't everything within 1,000 feet?
Well, yeah, we can't.
Well, no, it doesn't say, you know, that you can't be within 1,000 feet of a residential neighborhood. It's just, we think about it, so that, you know, if someone were to propose one of these literally in the middle of a residential neighborhood, you know, there are commercial locations that are grandfathered throughout town that are located in the middle of residential neighborhoods that we would be able to
We shall
consider.
consider, okay.
But also, you know, this is restricted to 2 areas anyways to start with, right? So it wouldn't be in the middle of a residence area. But if someone wanted to put something on the Silas Deane, obviously it's going to be potentially close to some, and it would give us the option.
Behind one.
Well, yeah, it would give us the option to basically say, even though we don't have 1,000 feet limit on residents, in this particular location, where these residences are, we don't agree. We could say that with these regulations.
Yeah. Tom?
Question for Denise. If the proposed amendment to establish this 1,000-foot perimeter or distance requirement, have you done any analysis in terms of how that would affect the potential for applications?
I did do some GIS mapping to show different increments of separation from religious and educational institutions. So I do have that available.
Yeah, we saw it in the summer.
Yeah, I provided it a few.
Yeah, I
meetings
recall
back.
that was
Yeah.
so. What I don't recall is we're about to vote on this well, my mind is unclear in terms of what the effect would be. Do you have any memory of how, how more restrictive this would be in terms of possibilities of establishing such establishments?
I think the, putting a distance from residential is really the one inclusion of regulations that would very much limit any location because of the proximity of residential to the commercial corridors.
But as I understand, the proposed amendment is the distance would be from schools and religious centers or churches, synagogues and the like,
That's right,
and does not mention residential.
yes.
Yeah, I think my recollection from those kind of GIS circles was that once you got to 1,500 and over, then it was, you were in bizarre locations.
No. I knew that there was some distance where that wound up basically eliminating the possibility.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
one of the things as I was reading the regs that kind of concerned me is it mentions, the term schools and churches, synagogues, but those terms are undefined. So, for example, if you're looking at schools, are you looking at, it says public and private schools. Public schools is pretty much, a definition in terms of the accreditation of the school facility and the like. But what about private schools? Is that is private schools an open-ended kind of thing, with no criteria in terms of what a private school is, or does private school inherently carry a requirement of having some criteria for some kind of official sanctioning, such as accreditation requirements or anything of that sort?
That's built into the definition of school in the zoning regulations.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an institution of formalized instruction licensed by a governing body, and the instruction must ultimately lead to a formal graduation and granting of a diploma or degree, and includes both public and parochial schools.
Good, okay.
So the Russian school would not fit that, right? Russian language school, okay.
Yes.
Question.
Russian math, not Russian.
Oh,
language.
Russian math, I'm sorry.
You having a 1980s flashback here?
Just for clarity, schools include elementaries?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mitch? Yeah.
E2, line down says, shall not be visible from the exterior of the building. What does that mean? If they put a sign up, you can't see it? Not supposed to put a sign up because it says sales? So this building has to have nothing in front, should have nothing in front of it, just a building, and everybody has to know where it is.
Well, I think state regulations.
No sales,
can-
no signs.
No signs,
Okay, so, okay, I'm
no
fine with
no
that.
smoke pipes and
Nothing.
things,
Okay.
right.
Yeah, state regulations pretty much, govern that and carry really
So,
restrictive
I haven't
requirements.
got, other than Massachusetts, okay, so once in Connecticut, you see a store, there's no signs up with say the store is nothing, okay.
Well, there's
They are
there's a
allowed
store that
signs.
will have the name of it.
Yeah.
It can't have any,
Say what it does.
well, it can't have a
Pot leaf.
pot leaves on it or anything like that. It can't say marijuana dispensary.
Okay, okay, it's okay.
You have to know where it is you're going.
I'd like to
That'd be regular.
request in the same section E2, that since we're really going after,
Let's just hold that thought.
Okay.
I'm going to second Peter's motion and amendment, just so that we have some process here. Dave, sorry. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose track of where we were procedurally.
with what he's discussed is the cultivation, so that, I do it for all facilities, is that where it states fully enclosed building, I'd like to read fully standalone, separated enclosed building for the containment and the ventilation. Because the noise for the ventilation will be extremely high, and the containment is the idea, if I have I'm thinking about a retail store, and you have something right next to it, if cultivation will never be that way, I'm just worried about the containment of the facilities.
Are
For cultivation.
are you talking only about cultivation?
And the reason I'm speaking of cultivation is because of, I'm talking all facilities, but with cultivation, I'd like to be a standalone building, separated because of the ventilation and the containment of the fumes.
only for cultivation uses, not for.
I'd like it for all of them, but I'll go with cultivation. Yeah, the group that
Well-
presented last week said all their buildings are
Yeah,
standalone.
Dave,
That's
I
the
don't
reason I
think
brought
that
it up.
anybody's gonna be smoking or creating, I hope, an issue with the retail side. I think it's buy and leave, right? But I agree with your point on cultivation, because they may be using chemicals and other things that you gotta be very careful with. Yeah, so that makes sense.
So you accept that
Cultivation.
amendment of
With-
cultivation
yes.
is in a standalone building?
Yes, I
All right,
do.
I'll accept
That
that.
does make sense, yeah.
Tom, then Paul.
My comment on that is that while I'm not opposed to, the requirement, the state of Connecticut regulations pretty well covers those issues. And what you're getting into in, adopting that kind of standard is you're going beyond just land use regulations. You're getting into matters of health and safety regulations that I think basically are redundant and may ultimately be in conflict with, state, the state regulations that regulate how these facilities operate and what they can do inside and materials they can use and what they've got to have and so forth, which are pretty stringent. So I just think that that's overkill and really unnecessary. I understand your caution, your concern. I sympathize and empathize with, the objective. I just think it's redundant and may wind up being in conflict with the state regulatory process that regulates these facilities pretty stringently regarding health, safety, security, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. The ventilation is more or less what I'm really worried about.
Yeah, and that's really stringently regulated by the state, the State Department of Consumer Protection.
Yeah, I mean, we have odor control as one of our conditions that they have to explain it to us as well.
Right.
Paul?
So Rich, procedurally, we're going through and making edits to all of the document. So I'm still gonna come back to, we have the town council, we have the police chief, we have the health district. I was looking in the packet of how towns that have enacted prohibitions, what mechanics they've used. I know some of this is dated. 17 towns have prohibitions and 14 of them were done through zoning. So I think that kind of backs up that it does fall within our purview. I'm still looking then in that case, listening to that input, section C1, removal of that paragraph of all retail establishments.
Okay, if you want to make that an amendment to Peter's motion to delete C1 and remove retail.
I don't know if I'm in the right place in the procedure for it.
No, that's a perfectly fine place. I mean, we have to move in some direction, and that's as good as any.
I will not accept that.
No, I know. I wouldn't accept it as the seconder either. So does somebody want to second Paul's motion to delete C1?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. So motion by Paul, second by Dave to delete retailers section C1. Do we want to have further discussion on that, or just try our minds? All right.
I'll move the question on that then.
Okay. So the item on the table right now is to delete retail from the draft regulations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's 3. All opposed? No.
No.
All right, 4 no. That amendment fails.
Well, that clarifies it then.
Well,
No, wait, I'm fine with it, clarifies it.
Yeah, no,
Now we know what we're doing.
that's the issue. That one, there was still sort of that yes or no, and then move forward from
Yeah.
there, so.
well, I mean, we haven't gotten to the fun part where it takes 5 votes to actually accomplish anything here, but All right, so the amendment to delete retail fails to pass, and we have the motion include, to adopt the regulations with the amendment to add the separation distances and standalone buildings for cultivation is what's on the floor now. All right. Any other discussion on that, or do we want to see what happens?
Call the vote.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. That passes. Do we want to set an effective date of April 20th?
That would be fitting.
That's good.
Really?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you.
So, let's just so I understand, so we'll clean this up, I said everything, then we come back and vote on that last issue one more time, probably we have more people, is that it? And that's the end of it.
No, we're done.
So what happens with the retail part?
That was the amendment,
Yeah, but I thought it wasn't passed.
right.
Enough people.
Deleting the retail didn't.
Oh, okay, so it's still in there then, okay.
Yeah, it's still in there.
Okay, I understand, okay, I'm stupid here tonight, okay.
Okay.
Okay, done.
Thank you. All right, next item, other business. I don't see any. Next item is minutes of March 7th.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, staff reports?
Well, I've been focused on this, so I don't really have all that much to report on unless you guys have a question about a specific property. But otherwise, the next thing that we have to deal with is the plan of conservation and development.
When do we start?
No, we can do that in
Right
one-
away.
We can do that in one meeting. Well,
Yeah.
Well, we have to, what are we gonna get, RFP for a consultant to help us put it together?
So we have a budget through the town, and then we also received a grant through the Department of Housing for an affordable housing component to the plan. So we will be putting, I have done a lot of research and checked out some recent RFPs and plans, so I'll provide you with those at an
You
upcoming
want a
meeting.
motion to go?
I don't need a
in there?
motion for it, no.
No, I mean, we're legally obligated to do it
Yeah.
this year, so.
Yeah, okay. What do you want?
I was just letting you know, it was part
No,
of the
you
part of the
don't.
staff report.
Staff reports. we're letting her-
The only other thing is we've gotten a
You
lot
can vote
of
no on it.
serious,
We're not doing a plan of
Where
conservation.
the hell go?
We're not letting the state tell us what to do.
we've gotten some pretty serious inquiries about the former Denny's location. So right now, we anticipate the demolition of that structure, and they are going to come back with a special permit approval for a restaurant with a drive-through at that location.
This is who now?
The Denny's location, 1298 Silas Deane. So I anticipate that in the next 6 weeks or so.
Wow.
Really?
Oh, she didn't say where it was.
Think of Dunkin' Donuts. You
It's,
can't see the other one from
We
it.
need another Dunkin'
It's a
Donuts.
franchise called
So low.
Keen's Chicken.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
Tell them I'd like to see the site raised up. No, never mind.
Is that on the
Sits
flood
down
zone?
so low. Doesn't it?
No, maybe the back.
There is a corner of the northeast side of the property that is, but
Yeah.
it's just part of the parking area.
Completely different subject, but day after tomorrow is the annual meeting of the
Yes.
Connecticut Planning How many on our commission has signed up to go to that?
There's 4 members, and I'm going to be there as well.
Okay.
Yep.
I've-
5 members.
Something that I was thinking about relative to that is that usually those that attend get some, credits with regards to the requirements for undergoing training. And I was just wondering, has there been any assessment of commission members in terms of where we stand relative to individual commissioners not having or being or needing the training to meet the state standards?
So we do need to have a conversation about
Training?
making sure that everybody is,
Yeah, I mean, it's early enough, we can talk about that
I mean,
tonight.
the more than that meeting, for example.
that meeting, you'll only get 1 hour of the 4
I
required.
don't know if you got credit for that, because I was on the video.
I received an email.
You received an email?
For which thing?
The, it was a video.
Affordable housing.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you should get an email, because I hung on to it, Rich, right? And we would turn into Denise, so that's.
Yeah, that would be great. There is no formal way of tracking.
No, you're kind of on your honor and sort of a spreadsheet sort of thing.
I have to go look and see if I got an email.
But the issue
No,
is
you were there.
if we don't comply with that, it could cause us to be not able to receive certain funding.
Has the state established who can supply that education?
Yes.
Okay.
Established what?
Who can
Who's
supply
authorized?
the education? Because architects have to have 12 hours a year, and literally, the education level changes depending on who the supplier is. Like, some suppliers take you through an intense course, and you have an exam at the end. Other ones will just simply give you a presentation for an hour during your lunch, and then you get the credit without taking the exam. Right, so,
Yeah, here it's, I think we all know, but it's just as a reminder, that it's 4 hours, and one of those hours has to be on fair and affordable housing. And it can be provided by, the organizations that are listed are the zoning enforcement officers, the planners association, the bar association, Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, Council of Small Towns, or other similar organizations,
When are
so.
the other 3 parts going to be brought up for training?
What do you mean?
We went through one.
There's different opportunities available throughout the year, so I will
just
let
gotta
you
be
know when they become available.
Yeah, I mean, and the 1.5 hour video through UConn Center for Land Use Education and Research that I think I sent a link out about. You didn't have to watch it then, you can watch it anytime during the year, and you get your hour and a half.
Oh, I didn't know.
There are 2 other videos posted on the same website, one on basic procedural requirements and one on conflict of interest and bias. Each of those is between an hour and a half long. So, at some point during the course of the year, if you're driving somewhere, you can just turn it on and listen to it, and you will satisfy all of your requirements for the year just by, observing those things. And there's no, requirement that you click in or anything like that. You're pretty much on your honor for
On your honor?
compliance.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, the Bar Association thing that was back on March 11th, that included the 1 hour on fair and affordable housing, and it had like 6 other hours on top of that as well. The thing on Thursday night, I think, is another hour, but I don't believe it's on affordable housing, it's just kind of a general hour.
There are 4 different topics, I think, but one of the conversations is affordable housing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Denise, you'll let us know when these come up, right? And we're on our own with
Yes.
this. We're not going to have a training session at lunch sometime organized by you.
I mean, I think we can do that.
Yeah, I mean,
We
Nice
might
try.
get to
Are
that
you
point
paying
if,
for it?
if we're.
Yeah, I mean,
We could do that on the last day.
no, I mean, At some meeting where we have a light agenda, I could
Right.
probably coerce the
That's
town
what I
attorney
was-
to come in and talk for an hour
Right.
about something just.
That-
Yeah, that's
And
a
and
good
we'll
idea.
figure out a way of
I'd
tracking
like
it
that.
internally.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
I couldn't attend the other one, and so.
The only other thing that I have to report are, we had received a grant through the DEEP for a multimodal trail study to continue the Hartford bike ped trail. So we issued the RFP. It went out yesterday, and the closing deadline for submission is April 12th. The grant amount was $142,000 to complete the study. So once we get submissions, I will keep you posted about
This is the
timeline for
study
selecting
from
a
Hartford
consultant.
down through,
Yes, to Glastonbury and
on that Glastonbury side? No.
to also
Our
connect
side.
to Putnam.
Oh, yeah, connect up the, yeah, of course.
Or over the frozen river during times when you can do that.
It would have been all about 2 days this year.
Yeah, right. You have to jump from one ice sheet to another.
Right, exactly.
The next agenda, we have an application for the property at 187, 189 Main Street, which is Old Town Cafe and Luna Pizza. They are looking to secure special permit approval for outdoor dining. And then the self-storage facility at 2176 Berlin Turnpike was approved Wednesday night, last Wednesday by Inland Wetlands, so they will be coming to you guys as well on April 4th.
What's
That's
that
the one
one?
down in the hole?
Yeah.
That one way down
Yep.
there?
Yeah.
Okay. And what is that gonna be?
Self-storage.
Self-storage, it's about 100,000
Oh, the one
square
down the
feet.
hole?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God, not that one. Okay, I'm sorry. Got the
Yeah,
wrong
yeah,
hole.
that's their
Wrong hole
that's their
over there.
marketing ploy is, oh yeah, we're the ones down in the hole, so. Yeah. Do you have any, I know
Hole in the hole storage.
other people have asked about what, if anything, is being done on the U-Hauls
That's the
at
way I
the
feel about that hole.
hardware store.
So
And I
our,
thought,
Thank God they're not putting any people.
just so that people know, I followed up with Charles after we got his reports at the last one, you know, basically asking him to give us kind of an update on all of the things that happened before January that haven't been resolved, because, you know, just being around, you're probably getting asked questions like, what's going on with X, what's going on with Y, like, you know, the half a house on Highland Street, the one on Butternut with the hole in the roof, the U-Hauls, you know, the things that have just kind of been lingering for years or more. You know,
And what do you want to do?
I wanted updates on those things
That's
from
why you
Charles.
want him to update.
Yeah, exactly, and
more
to do it-
frequently, I think, I think we would get a
concludes.
quarterly report from him, which is what we had gotten in the past. In terms of 662 Silas Deane specifically, he did reach out to them again last week.
1,000 you're talking about?
No,
662.
the
it's
U-Hauls
Discount
by
World.
the new hardware place across
yeah.
from Pelton's that has the U-Haul trucks in it.
Yeah, okay.
So there was, the business owner, it took him a few weeks to be able to secure a signed application from the property owner, which we did just get at the end of the week. So now we are able to process the application. So he will be on the agenda probably mid-April or first thing in May.
Okay.
Any more success with 1,000 Asylum, the owner? Is he cooperating in any way?
We had a staff meeting with the fire marshal, building official, zoning, health at the end of last week in terms of the outstanding violations at the property. And This morning, our zoning enforcement officer and the fire marshal did an inspection of the property. I saw them before the inspection, but I have not had a chance to talk to them after, so I'm not sure what their findings were, but I can definitely report that next meeting.
So you don't know what,
I don't know what they found today specifically.
anything more than already you knew?
I mean, they're using the property and they have no permits to be in the building.
Really?
There's building code, fire code, health code violations, and the use of the property currently is not permitted.
They went down to inspect to see if, yeah, okay, good. I'd like to see that clamped down.
I hope they made it back out. I hadn't seen them, so.
Well, I've seen the fire marshal posting on Facebook, so
Oh, right.
I think he
It's 40
survived
years, that's
that.
right,
so-
yeah.
I would think they could disappear in that place and
Yeah.
never come out. Yeah, oh, good. But what do they think the owner is gonna do or wanna do? Are you just hanging on?
I mean, that's really where we are at the point in the conversation with the owner, is trying to really get a handle on.
Is he looking for money to help clear the site in any way?
He's not asked for any money.
He doesn't want anything like that.
We've not offered.
I think we gotta really go to the brink on this one, but it's difficult stuff to take over a site that somebody doesn't wanna cooperate with you on, right?
This one is a very difficult one,
20,
yes.
30, 40 years ago in the state housing department, that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
All right, thank you. Next is public comments on general matters of planning and zoning.
Good evening. Rob O'Connor, 180 Main Street. Just a few things. Just wanted to thank Denise for the mentioning of the DEP grant. I was involved in the front end of that, and that's part of Riverfront Recapture, is kind of like the middleman in it, but between Wethersfield and Hartford, Rocky Hill, we tried to get them to kind of join in the payment part, but they wouldn't, but I'm sure they will as the Putnam Bridge Trail progresses, that hopefully will be a connection for people to come down from, as far as South Windsor over the Bissell Bridge and down, but, and also you mentioned the plan of conservation and development. I just wanted to, as one of the chairs of Bike Walk Wethersfield, support that when that does come up, that the bike ped master plan that's in progress, not completed, does get folded into that, because I think there are a lot of things in there that would be important. And then I'm switching on my residence hat. I just wanted to, I wanted to come before you considered the 2138 permit that was mentioned for Old Town / Luna Pizza. I don't know if that's considered one business now, but I would request that you do your looking at that application after April 30th, when the COVID temp policies grandfather and sunset, or sunset is, I guess, the right term. My problem is moving from cannabis to alcohol is that plan says that it's about outdoor dining, but what goes on in that patio is really outdoor drinking. That's not that business, the bar business, I think when the COVID policies came about to survive or do something, and I don't blame them for it, they tried to fold in, because I think that the COVID policy is serving alcohol with a meal. And I think it was done so restaurants could survive by, providing a service outside, and bars that serve food could do it outside and survive. That's never happened there. It's I wouldn't say never. It's very rare that in the beginning that they did not have a food service. So what it's become is an outdoor bar. And I don't think it's fair for residents, and I'm speaking for myself and other residents that front that property and all around it, because there's enough noise and mischief and shenanigans and, subhuman behavior with overuse of alcohol as it is, as an indoor bar. But it's never, they don't have an outdoor liquor license. And I think if you go ahead and consider what they're calling outdoor dining policy next week or next meeting on April 1st, and sort of backdoor grandfather them in their outdoor dining, which is going on right now. There's just drinking basically right now. Somebody might grab a Luna pizza once in a while when it was warm, but when the majority of, since Lumen has opened up, has been the tables being used for drinking parties. And I don't think that's the spirit. It wasn't what was meant to be. It was never approved. And what you have basically is 10 and 15 people going. I remember when you passed Luna's plan, there was supposed to be an 8 o'clock shut off of serving food outside. That does not happen. And I know it's not your job to follow up and see what happens, but.
So what is this?
George, we're not going to talk about this.
Yeah, I'm really just kind of.
It's a public hearing that's coming up, and
I'm just doing public comment. Just so I'll probably be back then too.
I think that's the appropriate time to talk.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand
I'm
that
not looking for
that you want to say anything, but I don't want to have us get in trouble for.
I'm glad because
having a public hearing outside.
All the meetings
of a
I go to
public
that people talk. I used to be the Board of Education chair in South Windsor, and it's like, you have to zip your mouth. It's to listen to public. So I'm just.
No, I'm happy to listen. I just don't want
to
get us having a back and forth.
And as a resident, I've always been willing to, I look at them as a neighbor. They don't look at me as a neighbor. They don't tell their patrons, don't urinate on my lawn. I got to pick up cigarette butts. I don't want to be like the old man, get off my lawn thing, but the technicality of trying to get an outdoor dining permit, I think should be considered after the alcohol is taken off the table. And I've corresponded with the Liquor Commission. They don't have an outdoor permit right now. So they said, after the sunset goes down on April 30th, they'd have to go apply for that. So if by some maneuver that they get outdoor dining approved on April 1st, and it includes them serving liquor. I mean, I know Luna is not an alcohol establishment, and they're not a food establishment, so I think that's something for you guys to figure out exactly what is appropriate there, but I don't think, I watched the boondoggle meetings, I was part of that, and some of the ways the other alcohol use, I guess, for La Noche's new project, and this is just basically like opening up a 30 or 40 person bar outside. And I don't think it's just not good for the historic district. It's not the village business district. It's not. I don't think it's good for that.
Okay.
And so that's my 5 minutes. So.
Thank you.
But I thank you for all your guys' work. So.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. No correspondence. See everybody. Many of you on Thursday.
Yes.
Behave.
What time on Thursday?
Anybody
4 p.m.
4 people going, anybody want to ride, I'll take
So
them.
crowded,
Huh?
Is it a meeting or is it?
It's the CFPZA, they have an annual
Oh, okay.
awards dinner.
I know about that one, yeah, okay, got
You've
it.
been to that? Have you been to that?
Should really.
Yeah. It's the only perk you get for serving on this commission.
Actually, you sometimes learn something.
Yeah, if you're not careful, you'll learn something.
Right.
I'm retired now.
Anybody want to ride, I'd be glad to take you.
5 o'clock is like, they do a little cocktail for a little while, and then they have a sit-down dinner, and then they do the presentation.
Yeah, so the sitting down is probably around 6 o'clock, I think.
All right, 5 o'clock.
Aquaturf, right?
Correct.
Aquaturf.
All right, motion to adjourn?
It's the wagon room.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much.